Hi and welcome to Cherry Pie Math. This video is going to go over unit rates, where they come from and how they relate to ratios. And before we get started, you should know the parts of a fraction, so like the numerator and the denominator. And you should also know the imperial measurement symbols, just because the metric system is pretty obvious, like kilogram is kg and grams is g, etc. But imperial measurement symbols, I've never really understood why it's like pound. So like pound is LB, for example. That drives me crazy, but whatever. Whatever floats everyone's boat, right? Okay, so let's pretend you're on a road trip and the sign says that you have 240 miles to your destination city. You might have done this, like you're driving in the car and then all of a sudden you see a sign, you're like, we're almost there. And then you're like, oh, dang it, we still have 240 miles. Let's say the car is traveling approximately 80 miles per hour. How many hours would it take you to get to the city? So I want you to pause the video and try to solve this by yourself. Okay, so hopefully you paused it and you tried it. And if not, now you get to know the answer. So you know it's 240 miles. And we know that it's taking you 80 miles per hour. So for 1 hour, you've traveled 80 miles. So in 2 hours, you'll have traveled 160 miles. And at 3 hours, you'll have traveled 240 miles, which is what we wanted. So we can say that it would take us approximately 3 hours to reach our destination. The reason it's an approximation and it's not set in stone is because I don't know if you've ever been driving. Hopefully by now and at this point of your life when you're watching this video, you have. But you're never going to be at the same speed the entire time. Sometimes you'll get to a town where the speed limit's like 25 miles an hour and you're like, speed trap. And sometimes you're going not over the speed limit because we don't do that. So it's an approximation, but it does help us to kind of see what a unit rate is, that for every 1 hour, we have a specific change in the distance. So to start off with the unit rate, we need to talk about what a ratio is. You might have heard this word before. A ratio is a mathematical expression that compares two quantities through division. And one way you can think about it is it's basically saying for each blank happens. It should be an each. So like, for example, for every $3, or sorry, for every 1 hour you work, I guess, you earn $10, for example. So that's what a ratio is. It's comparing two different quantities, or like for every 10 lottery tickets, one will win, for example. So stuff like that. It's just comparing two quantities. We use ratios to compare things and then apply those conversions to other things, to, I guess, like larger quantities. For like, in our last problem, we saw that we knew that for 1 hour we were going to travel 80 miles. And so I could use that ratio later to apply it to a much larger distance. A unit rate is basically, it's just a special kind of ratio. It's a special ratio where either the numerator or denominator, because we represent ratios in fractions. So a unit rate is a special ratio where either the numerator or the denominator is 1. So some everyday examples like we've seen is like miles per hour, so MPH, or maybe at the store you'll see like dollars per pound, or like dollars per kilogram, or like this can be like KPH, like kilometers per hour. Trying to think of any other examples. Words per minute, like your typing speed. things like that, where one of these items is 1. So like with this one, it's per 1 hour. I don't know why I'm writing so weird today. So that's for 1 hour. This is for 1 unit weight. And this is for 1 minute. So that's what a unit rate is. It's basically saying for every one of this, the other thing happens. And it can be either the numerator or the denominator. Because in a ratio, they're actually interchangeable. You can actually just switch the top and the bottom depending on your preference. So we use unit rates by first we have to ID the unit rate. Second, we need to figure out our scale number, I guess, which is what we multiply by. And then we multiply the other number by the previous number. And that'll make more sense in our examples here. Because in a unit rate we have like 1 thing over 1, or we have 1 thing over a, right? So if I multiply a by 3, then I have to multiply the 1 by 3, and vice versa. If I multiply the 1 by 5, I have to multiply the a by 5, and I can just change them around depending on my situation. So for example, this one is going to be finding the corresponding denominator because we are given the numerator. So we're given 70 miles per hour, or 70 miles per 1 hour. We're traveling 350 miles. So I could solve it by saying, okay, well, I know it's 70 over 1 to start with, and I'm trying to change it to 350 miles. The only thing I have to say about like the fractions is make sure you keep the units right. So I put miles on top, so it has to stay on top. Okay, so I know that 70 times 5 is equal to 350. And if you don't know that off the top of your head, you could always just do 350 divided by 70. That's totally fine. So that means I have to multiply the 1 by 5 as well, which becomes 5 hours. And that's my answer. So that's my corresponding denominator. If I wanted to, I could also say... or another way people might think about it is like, oh, I have 350 miles. I want to see how many times 70 fits into it. The answer is obviously 5, and that would just be your remainder, or like that would be your amount of time. You could also switch it. You could say 1 hour over 70 miles, and that's fine too. We don't normally think about it like this because we say 70 miles per hour, but either way you do it, you always end up with the same answer of 5. You're basically finding what we call the scale factor. That's the number you're multiplying both parts of the fraction by in order to get to your new bigger number, because the ratio has to stay the same. You don't have 70 miles an hour and then suddenly change it to 160 miles an hour, right? So let's do another example. This one's finding the corresponding numerator. So you might have seen like $3 a pound, or that's saying $3 for each 1 pound. Let's say I have 2.5 pounds and I want to find the amount of dollars. So I know that my initial unit rate in a fraction would be $3, or if you don't want to put the dollar sign, you can always just say $3 per 1 pound. And I know that we are going to get to 2.5 pounds. And this one is so nice because we know that 1 times literally anything in the world is going to be the other number. The other number is 2.5, so I know that I'm multiplying that by 2.5 to get there. So that means I have to multiply the top by 2.5 as well, and that comes out to be, what, 7.5, right? I'm just going to check. I know I teach math, but honestly, sometimes I just get so nervous, especially when I'm making these videos, because I'm like, what if I mess this up? It is 7.5. I was right. Okay. There we go. So my answer is it would cost $7.50. Be careful with the units with money, because remember that money always has 2 decimal places following it. So you can write $7.50, but honestly, if I was your teacher, I'd dock you a point, because at this point in your life, you should know that there are 2 things after the decimal point. Okay, let's do one more example. A tutor charges $35 per hour. So if I was to represent that in a fraction, in a unit rate, it would be 35 per 1 hour. How much would a session cost if the session was 2.5 hours long? So I know it's going to be 2.5 hours long. So kind of like the last one, I know that I'm multiplying by 2.5. I'm just going to use my calculator for this because I honestly just don't have it in me to do it in my head. 87.5. So my answer would be $87.50 because remember again, we have 2 decimal places. And that's really it. Once you get that unit rate written, that you just have to make sure you know what you're multiplying both parts by. So how many hours did the teacher teach if they earned 93.33? So again, I have $35 per 1 hour. I know that they're earning 93.33. I don't know this one off the top of my head. So like I said before, if you don't, you can always just do that second number divided by the first number, and that will get you what you need to know. So 93.33 divided by 35 is 2.667. So I'll just do 2.67 and that's fine. And that makes it $2.67 or 67 hours right there. So that would be my answer. So if you don't know the answer, you can always just do that number divided by that number, and that will get you what you need to know. So some things to remember: a unit rate always has a 1 in either the numerator or the denominator, and honestly, it really doesn't change. Just make sure you keep track of where things go. Like I can't put dollars up here and then put hours there, right? It has to stay the same on top and bottom. So make sure you stay consistent, but you can switch it around at the beginning if you want to. And remember that rates and ratios are just the same thing. There's lots of different words to describe fractions. Rates and ratios are what we would use more in like our everyday life, whereas fractions is